I'm going to start off really quick with initial reactions because I am not as high on this movie as you are. I think it is decent. I think it's because of the high standard that was set from the previous three films, and having watched those literally the same day and the night before, and then walking into Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, I thought it was good. I thought it was a step down though. It to me, it did not feel anywhere close to what I saw with Dawn or War. That bar is high, but in my opinion, it's almost like I don't want to give it a participation trophy for being good. I just thought it was an okay movie. It's like Batman. I go to see a Batman movie. It's a high bar. It's like the best superhero movies, my favorite superhero movies. I want to see a good Batman movie. And when I get hit with Dawn of Justice, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to say, this is not a great Batman movie. It really isn't. Okay. And then I see The Batman. I'm like, this is a fucking awesome Batman movie. This is just an okay Planet of the Apes movie. To me, it comes nowhere close, even to Rise of the Planet of the Apes, to tease our rankings. It had some good parts to it. I don't think the lead is as compelling. It's hard when you're trying to live up to Caesar. I think it was okay, Ricky Flicks. What were your initial reactions?
I think we agree on the quality of the movie, but we have wildly different expectations. My expectations were pretty low because you're not bringing back Caesar, the guy that's been every single Planet of the Apes movie, and also such a great protagonist. If you want to do best protagonist of trilogies, he is in the god tier. Caesar is
one of the greatest arcs in the history of trilogies.
Yeah, so like let alone like if you want to go like knee deep or a little more details and say best trilogy protagonist, I will throw in the top billing god tier Caesar. You don't have him in this movie. You have a Wes Ball who, yes, Maze Runner, hit or miss type of movies. And here also, like I would say, like there's no like humans that Like first movie, James Franco, John Lithgow, recognizable faces. And also when James Franco was on a freaking heater, he was nominated for an Oscar the year and hosted the Oscars that year as well. So big time star there.
William H. Macy, the only one.
And I didn't know he was in this movie. I was like, whoa. But and next movie, Gary Oldman, Dawn, and Jason Clarke, recognizable faces. Freaking Kobe Smith McPhee, I forgot was in that movie. And then also I forget freaking Mission Impossible 3 woman. Forget, but she's also in that movie.
No, it's all Kerry Russell.
Kerry Russell, recognizable face.
Very good in that movie.
Yeah, she's a good actress. And then obviously third one, Woody Harrelson. Like not only the apes and a great protagonist, but also big time movie stars and also recognizable. So for us, like going into this one where there's literally one human in the movie that we don't know and looks and like, she's pretty and she was good in this movie and has an interesting arc in the third act. I thought was great. My expectations were just lower. And I think this was good. And it doesn't crack the top 3. Like it doesn't crack the previous trilogy. But I'm not going to say I think it's clear that it's not like as good as the other 3. But I'm not going to say it's like a huge step down. I just think our expectations are just a little different.
Yeah, no, I'm just riding the high of watching that trilogy again and then going immediately to the theaters. It sets unrealistic expectations, I think. But I think that's the magic of what Matt Reeves did with Dawn and War. And after watching those, I'm like, damn, like this guy did become a can't miss director from these movies. And paired with the performance of Andy Serkis, someone that we're going to be talking about a lot when it comes to obviously the top billing rankings of the best modern Planet of the Apes films. I want to talk about the connection between that trilogy, the modern trilogy, and this movie. You brought up Cody Smith McPhee. There's a detail here. It's like the book that he gives Maurice, right? It shows up in this movie. The
Easter eggs.
The logo of the window, not even a logo, excuse me, the symbol of the window. That sounds disrespectful. The symbol of the window becomes a religious symbol. It's almost like a cross that I'm wearing on my shirt right now, right? The legacy of Caesar is something that is fascinating to kind of watch in this movie. He's a Jesus-like Messiah type of figure. And the way they handle him, I think what Planet of the Apes does so well is that they use their films to talk about like real societal, not issues, but topics like religion, okay? And race. That goes like with the previous trilogy. But when they what they did with religion here, I thought was so interesting. It's like the way people remember, right, and kind of twist Messiah type figures and their views to what they want in order to maintain power and control. I teach World Civ 1 history, and I just thought of like the Catholic Church the entire time I was watching this movie. You know, I thought that they had a really cool theme that they could follow for this movie on religion. I thought it worked extremely well. That's I think one of the best parts about the movie. But Ricky Flex, what do you think about the connection, right, and the religion aspects, right, from the initial trilogy to this one?
Two things. One, it helps to just mention Caesar every 5 minutes, because that helps with that continuality, or the continuity. God, what's the word? Like carrying over from the previous trilogy.
Continuation.
Yeah, continuation. You know, the overlap, and it helps with us. And also, like I said, he's not going to be in this movie. Well, he was in this movie. The opening scene.
Thank God we got a funeral for him.
Yeah, like that just shows you this protagonist was amazing. They gave a freaking funeral in a movie. What was it 7 years later after the movie? Like that just shows how important he was. He is the franchise. That's why, again, like going back to the expectations, I think just mine were a little lower. And then also, I would just say for this as well. That's why like X-Men. We talk about X-Men all the time and what they do in the animated show, and it's talk about like race and the mutants. And where their places in society, and other different factions of mutants, and other obviously dystopian societies. This happens all the time in movies. Planet of the Apes is one of the ones that's like the hallmark of it. They've been doing it since 1968, you know. So since there was freaking sound in movies, so it's like not surprising. I thought it was really well done, and it was just interesting because obviously as someone that's watched the three trilogies, it's like, or sorry, the three movies in the trilogy. It's like, oh, but this really happened. And you're trying to like put together things. It's like, oh, the Raka character is the Maurice in the previous trilogy, basically. But he's more of like, if you want to go back to the Catholic Church example, he's like one of the priests they send out to, you know, Western civilization, saying, oh, this is what like Catholicism is and stuff like that, and Jesus and things like that. So it was just really cool, the connections. They've been doing it for freaking 60 years.
The way that Proximus Caesar kind of like took Caesar's words and was able to twist them in a way that was going to make sure that he maintains and galvanizes, right, people to support him. I thought that was really interesting, and that's like a real world application. That you've seen that happen throughout history. You know, Planet of the Apes, they are really good at that type of stuff, right? Displaying real world issues or real world topics, and then putting it into their world, their universe. I thought it was excellently done. In terms of like the human performance here from May, right? We have basically one human in this movie, and that's like you're talking about. You look at the previous three movies and you have like those household names, and here you have zero household names, right? You have this very interesting human character, May, who is she has a history with other humans, right? She has a lot of mystery to her character, a lot of intrigue, and I think they handled her very well. It was a strong performance, I think. Honestly, probably the best performance of the movie in my eyes, right? I thought her compared to Noah, I found her way more compelling as someone who is what Planet of the Apes does is they twist, right, the perspective. Instead of like the apes being the ones that aren't as evolved, it's the humans that aren't as evolved. I thought they did some really interesting things with her. Noah was okay. I had May, then I had Raka as number 2, and then I had Noah in terms of compelling storylines.
What about Proximus?
I don't know.
Not in it enough.
I don't think he was in it enough. He was electric when he was on screen. I love the way he pronounced evolution.
I've been thinking of that too. Evolution. Like, I don't know how to do it.
Evolution. I hated William H. Macy in this movie. I also want to say I'm not a William H. Macy guy. You know, he's like some people like love Shameless. They look at him as like a character actor, someone that comes in and steal the show. Not me. I think he's kind of lame, to be honest. I'm not a big fan of him. But
I don't see him as stealing the show. Like, let's go to Fargo. Like, he's not like Steve Buscemi in Fargo. He's just the guy that, you know, hires them to kill his wife. Like, it's not like he's the, you know, the draw. Like Magnolia, it's Tom Cruise. And William H. Macy's character is the worst storyline in that movie. Like this
I was going to say, always plays an unlikable guy in everything he's in, except for Wild Hogs.
Wild Hogs is great. He's great in Wild Hogs. It's a great shout out. But no, going back to Proximus for a second, though. Kevin Durant, Tree from Mystery Alaska, the big guy. this is probably his like best. Like I know it's a voice performance, but this is probably his best performance ever. He's
Ever.
been in a lot of stuff too, and like very
Also in Wild
recognizable
Hogs.
face. Also in Wild, yes. Oh my God, the William H Macy Kevin Durant, because he's the guy with the beer he puts on William H Macy in
Yeah.
the diner. But yeah, I really think the voice performance that was the best one. I think even more like than Rocca, but Rocca was like the best overall because he's in the most of the movie and kind of like helped. He also kind of had short-lived. He was only 2 acts of the movie. That's also
Yes, but he was my favorite character. I thought May put on the best performance because of like the unpredictability of her character. I thought maybe that's more of the writing that handled her very well. Proximus is a good shout out. He was pretty freaking good. But Rocca was just the most enjoyable, in my opinion.
he's the fan favorite.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think like there wasn't any that I had issues with. You know, I would just say with Noah's character, if we want to get to that, uh, tough
Such
to
a
follow,
hard one.
tough to follow Caesar, and they really tried to make him like his come up really interesting. He climbs the highest tree. They're hyping him up. He's very smart. He's fixing the weapon. He's fixing his mom's fish hanger. He's doing all these very smart things. And like even like Proximus, like clever ape. Like and even though like apes have evolved where they're no longer talking in one word bits, and it's shocking that they talk like in the previous trilogy. Now it's like no, they're barely using sign language and they're talking in full English. So it's just like it was really tough to follow Caesar. They tried really hard. I think it's interesting now as like kind of the leader of the Eagle. That's a spoiler.
It's okay.
But it's like going forward to the next movie. I think he could really take a step up, really a big step up, because this movie basically was overall set up for this trilogy. Like Rise was obviously a setup for the next 2 movies, but that had Caesar and an interesting, like a more interesting, compelling storyline to me. Like the come up of Caesar versus this, like the come up of who? Like a guy that has eagles on his arms, not as cool. Just not.
This movie kind of took me by surprise where it became smaller scale than I expected. It's not just humans versus apes like you traditionally see from this franchise. It has a little bit of an element of that, all right, but with the May character. But there's not many humans in this movie. It became like Noah, his tribe, right, is being absorbed, almost like the Roman Empire, like absorbs like all these different lands, right, to expand, right, by this kingdom led by Proximus Caesar.
He
Yeah,
also had Noah also had like the patch on his chest, similar to Caesar. So the entire time I was waiting for the drop of like he's related to Caesar somehow. I was like waiting for that the entire time.
yeah, but no, I do think there's a lot of room for Noah's character to grow. It's just he had an impossible task to try and live up to Caesar, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to live up to like one of the most iconic performance in the Planet of the Apes trilogy, right? They built 3 movies around this one character. This one, it kind of took me by surprise because you had this one clan, right, being absorbed by this kingdom, and you have ape versus ape. You have ape versus ape, and I thought also it just takes away that human element for the most part. But I agree. I didn't really, excuse me. I didn't really see Noah when I watched the first scene. I'm like, I didn't know we're gonna go on a journey with this guy.
Really?
He just wasn't that electric to me. Like he was
Oh, yeah.
someone that I wasn't drawn to. Right. I thought his arc during this movie is good. Right. I don't think it was like out of the ordinary. I thought it was surprising because this guy is not, it's Owen Teague playing this guy. It's not Andy Serkis, right? It's not someone that you are like, oh, that's your lead right there. Like just to see him grow and being unbeknownst to who this character is and who this actor is, I thought it was just okay. It's impossible expectations.
Yeah, smaller clan, like Caesar's literally the Jesus Messiah figure. Like it's just not as interesting. Like it's just not. It's an equal clan. There's like less than 100 apes there, and Caesar literally started the ape, like the planet of the apes is because of Caesar.
I also wanted to say this movie, I think pacing wise is so much different than the last 3 movies. I found the beginning very slow.
It
I
was
feel like the action sequences were few and far between. I feel like War, it felt like an epic. Like you have some slower parts there, but you're centering around Andy Serkis, so you can afford to be a little bit slower. Uh, Dawn is pretty much a perfect action movie, in my
Right.
opinion. Rise is great, but like it's okay that it's slow because like you're getting to know Caesar, you're seeing how he is being enlightened by the world, right? And being enlightened on how apes are treated in this world.
An
I
origin
found
movie.
this one, the second half was strong. I found the first half very draggy. Did you
A lot of
agree?
lulls. A lot of lulls. And uh, a lot of world building. Like I mentioned before, with them trying to show that Noah's smart and he's different than all the Eagle clan apes there. And also just saying like, oh, we're in LA. This is LAX. And like trying to show like, oh, like this is like 300 years after. This is what Rock is saying about Caesar versus what actually happened that we know 300 years prior. And there's, again, just a lot of world building in this movie versus the first one. Like, yes, you could say the same thing, but that was off of a Jesus figure like that we're just naturally interested in, like a superhero. This one's just more like we know the planet of the apes. Like, yes, maybe we don't know it in this form where it's 300 years later, but I'm just not as interested. We should just have that be 30 minutes and then get to Proximus instead of an hour and 10 minutes until we get to the actual kingdom that they refer to in the title with Proximus.
Yeah, that was the juicy part of the movie. Now that I'm thinking about it, Proximus was pretty awesome. It was pretty great to have him when he was in the movie. It felt like we took it up a notch. The
stakes just were raised.
Yeah, 100% agree. Right, it's where you had all of a sudden everyone feels like they're in danger. Right, when you're around this guy. Right, you don't know what he's actually going to pull, and he's a guy who doesn't seem like he's the brightest bulb, but he knows how to hold and wield power. Okay. In terms of writing, I thought this was interesting. I don't think that this was the strongest point of the movie. I like the visuals of this movie. I thought that was excellent. I like the overall arc of Noah's character. But in terms of the writing here, sometimes I didn't know how much time has passed, in this movie. Like where you have that beginning and you have Raka having that relationship with Noah and then May being introduced. I really didn't feel like there was a strong connection between Raka and Noah, but I feel like May was on the outside looking in for a lot of it. I didn't feel like there should be a strong connection between a May and a Noah. Like Noah is trying to like save her May from these other apes. It feels like he is hurt by her betrayal and by her decisions made against him. I just never felt like they really established a firm relationship in the first place. I just really didn't buy that, and I think that was one of my big issues with the movie, because a huge part of this is like the unpredictability of May's character, the surprises that are thrown at you. But I found that when she makes like those twists and those betrayals, they weren't as effective because I never bought her and Noah as close in the first place.
Yeah, like it's funny during the movie when Noah goes on his journey, he gets to the destination. I'm thinking, oh, like 4 days have passed.
Yeah,
but they like.
Is it one day? Like it's literally
No,
1 or 2 days?
So I do think it was like weeks. Like they were trying to sell us that it was weeks, and this is
Not
where
clear.
like it just was not clear. And another movie that came into mind that shows a journey and it shows it takes time. This is gonna be a crazy comp, and I just give me a second. Shrek and Shrek 2. They show like the montage with a song and the weather changing day and night. They continue. You could see that this is a journey. Here it's like, oh, it's just the next town over. Like it's
I hated that part of this movie, dude. I hated. I'm like, how much time has passed? How close are they to like the kingdom? Like I didn't know if he was. You're right. Shrek 2 does an amazing job of that in the beginning. I agree.
And like it's just like when he gets to his mom, like and like his clan, it's like, dude, like you literally just saw him a couple days ago. I was like, what the hell? I was like, they're really trying to sell us that it was weeks. I was like, yeah, I ain't buying. But you're right. Like I think that was a big problem, because also that's what I'm thinking about instead of what the actually is going on in the movie. But for the overall story, the May character in that storyline I thought was great. In the third act, awesome. And I thought just overall for Noah, yes, we were talking about tough to follow Caesar, and maybe it had a lot of lulls in the first 40 minutes, but it was a good underdog story. It really was. The Eagle clan, we'll talk about the ending, by the way. We'll talk about the ending and the spoilers. But it's just like, it's a good underdog story. It had something to work with there. And then a good supporting character in May that had good twists and turns in the third act.
Yeah. I think that writing of that portion, right, was kind of tough at the beginning of the film. Also, I want to say it, the visuals of this movie, that lived up to the original trilogy. They are really freaking good. They get better over time. Like you see Rise of the Planet of the Apes and you watch this movie, it's like holy shit. Like this is like crystal clear. I don't even know how they shot this. Is everyone in motion capture here? It is so awesome. And then to also have the action sequences that are hitting right with the water and then like the fighting inside of the water. I was like, damn, and the swinging inside of like that laboratory type of setting. I was like, this is what that franchise is. It might be what it could lean on in this movie if like we don't have stars, right? And we don't have like a Caesar at the center of it. Like it's got to have some amazing action sequences. I think they really pulled it off here, especially in the third act. But even like the first act had some great action sequences. They were just few and far between in my eyes.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's like a big selling point of this franchise. And you could say, like, go back in if this is like a debate on the best 21st century trilogies, you would probably lean on like this is one of the most important VFX trilogies of all time. Like in 21st century, like if you like probably Avatar, this like it's definitely like up there. So it's really like think about Rise 2011 versus even 2014 Dawn. Drastically different. Like Caesar on the horse just looks like more like it's obviously better now 10 years later, but even that 3-year difference was a crazy rise, pun not intended. And now it's just like holy crap, the gifs that you see on X that are going around, the stills, it's just like holy crap, these are actual apes. Like these like they're people. It's crazy. And then like obviously the world building with like showing off the Eagle Clan area, and also like the world, like LA and like the ballpark there, LAX, like I mentioned, all the other infrastructure that's like gone to shit. Like it's pretty remarkable what they did here. And that's like something that you lean on in like the debate of like why it's one of the best trilogies because it made so many advancements for VFX and special effects. And there's no Oscars for this movie, which I think is a good shout.
That seems like Wes Ball. Like this is up his alley. I think if it was supposed to be no stars, it's gonna be like setting centric and it's based on visuals. Like this is the guy. This is the guy you want, especially after Maze Runner. Okay. Other thoughts here, Ricky Flex. We talked about visuals, action sequences, performances, flaws and nitpicks. Anything else you got right now? To me, like the biggest thing was the beginning and the pace of this movie, and I had a beef with the writing a little bit. Overall, decent time. Do you have any other flaws or nitpicks?
I think just harping one more time on the world building, just maybe too much time spent on that, and that helped with the lulls. Not only with the storyline and the lack of clarity on how much time, but also just hey, we get it. We get this planet. Like even just the first scene, we get it. You know, and the first time we see the Eagle Clan, like after that, like we just need to focus on what's going on. This was a 2-hour, 25-minute movie, and you felt it, especially in the first act. So that's always not a good sign. Like these movies should be 2 hours and just run and gun. You know, it shouldn't be this. I think overall, like going forward, definitely should get to the lower end. But I don't know. These movies have been progressively getting longer and longer. The Rise was just under 2 hours. Dawn was like 2:10, and War was like 2:20. So these are just getting up in minutes. So I don't know. It's just like that's another thing I would just say with the lulls. I think that was a big contributor of it.
Runtime. This movie, with the scale of it, like a small tribe versus a big kingdom, ape versus ape. Like I didn't expect first installment. This movie should not be 2.5 hours. It should not be 2.5 hours.
And that kingdom's not really like by definition, it's probably a kingdom. But honestly, it's not really a kingdom. If we're gonna do nitpicks here,
it should be bigger. If it's a kingdom, it's got to be a little bigger.
It's like a couple clans. I would just say like you're calling Kingdom Planet of the Apes. I'm thinking like this Proximus guy is king of like the apes of the entire planet, like Caesar basically was. But like probably like he's just on like in the LA or whatever, Malibu or something like on the beach. I'm trying to think of California. I've never been, but it's like there's probably like all these other Proximuses within like probably like 500-mile radiuses going across the country and then the world globally. So like this isn't really the kingdom that I was expecting.
I was also thinking we have to get out of this area. I was hoping that with the new Planet of the Apes, I didn't anticipate it was going to be also in California, just like the previous 3 movies. Like, what is happening in the rest of the world? This is a good opportunity to be like, okay, let's go to the Eastern Seaboard. Let's see what's going on in New Jersey right now. Let's see what's going on in Connecticut, wherever. Like, is there other apes right now that are joining, right? Or is it only happening in this one area? I just thought it would have been great if we already just spent 3 movies in San Francisco. Like, is there other places where like there is like like apes living, maybe communicating, or maybe one escapes and goes somewhere else, not escapes but flees and goes to a different part of the country, or maybe even goes to Canada. I don't know. Just
Yeah, I
somehow
just think
gets somewhere else or goes to Mexico. I just feel like, why are we still in this setting after our fourth movie?
I think in the original the trilogy, the 2010 trilogy, um, it made sense. Like there's, we're just like a year, 2, 3 years, whatever, after the virus hits the world, right? And it's a global virus. Apes, like we're not like it was a global virus. Humans like dying. Like if you saw a human, it's like, oh, even then, right? But when you saw an ape, you're like, oh. So you have to assume that the apes kind of stayed on the West Coast there, around Caesar. But then post Caesar, this is 300 years later. You're telling me
Yeah.
all these apes, they didn't like skedaddle, find their own path. Think of America in the Western expansion, going out west, the gold rush. Like I don't know, I don't want to go too history. You're the history guy, but I'm just thinking there's a world to explore here. Even in war, they go from California to basically Canada, the border, to go against the Woody Harrelson character, and the U.S. Army is against them. So the U.S. Army knows they're a huge threat, but it's only on the Western seaboard. I just think now it's like, all right, there's got to be more apes out here.
Yes. Yes. I just want to see a different place. I'm like, I get it. Like, you have to mention Caesar because he was such an iconic member of this franchise and in movies in the 21st century. So it's like you want to bring him back to have that connectivity. I get it, but still, let's see something else. What else is happening in this world? But I like what they did with religion. I think that was a interesting theme. That's what Planet of the Apes does. Like they take something that's like IP, but it feels elevated and it feels like you have to think about it, you have to process it after watching it. I thought it was good in that regard. One thing I had an issue with is that I liked how it was ape versus ape, small tribe versus kingdom, and it was something like we hadn't seen from the Planet of the Apes franchise. What I didn't like was the ending of this movie, and without spoilers, it seems like we are kind of going or headed towards human versus ape again on large scale war type of um like we're heading towards war right between these two. I think this franchise is kind of hampered by it always is going to lead to humans versus apes. It's just like you can try and do something different, but it's eventually we're just going to be going to war again. It feels like this is how every single Planet of the Apes movie ends or has a premise of. It's just them fighting the humans. It's what it's going to be. This one was kind of refreshing by the idea of the ape versus ape, small tribe, what I said before. But to then like end that movie and be like, okay, we're going to get Dawn and war again. It's just like we just keep recycling the same thing. I think that's like a kind of a flaw of the franchise. You're limited by what you can actually do because it just ends up with being human versus apes the entire way.
I don't know. I understand your take. I just think that it's interesting because we've never seen a Planet of the Apes movies where the apes, who, like the other ones, they have turned human. But it's also they turn human in an evil way, like Proximus, and like turning the whole spin on the political scheme with religion and his selling point, and like how they're turning evil with the evolution. Like it's like humans, very similar.
It's just
And like,
backwards evolution, but that's like every Planet of the Apes movie. It's just like
but
one's
like it's
evolving, then they
it
take
felt
turns. They
different.
just take turns.
I agree, but it just felt different in this one versus the other Planet of the Apes movie. I'm thinking like even like 1970s ones. Like it is definitely very different, and they could still have the apes be the underdogs once because you see like May here turns like evil, like you kind of like it's no spoilers, but kind of evil, and you can really spin it again. I think so. Yeah, like if they want to do like a 9 movie trilogy, so like these three, the next three cannot be. It would have to be another twist. It would have to have a twist. It can't do this again. Like 9 straight movies of this.
I don't know if they can make 9 movies without this premise becoming stale. I don't know if they can do that. Like they're 4 of 9 right now, right? The producer's saying we made 4, right? We're gonna keep on going, make this all new trilogy. If I had to put money on it, I don't know if they're making 9 movies, right? I think this one's off on the right foot, but I think there is some staleness that potentially could happen after this trilogy. Are you gonna have someone this trilogy? how is it going to what's it going to be known for? Is it going to be the writing of it, the religious aspect, the legacy of Caesar? It certainly isn't going to be Noah, dude. He's not. Like, you can't have a
He's
whole
not the
trilogy
guy.
around Noah, dude. But I'm kind of interested in seeing what happens to him, but is he compelling enough where I'm like, I want to see a lot more of Noah? Not necessarily. I'd be okay if we have more of the humans and what's going on in another base, and that base, like, having contact with apes. That might be something I'm more interested in. I don't know if I want to spend a whole other movie with Noah. I just don't find him that compelling.
Yeah, but the third act, he kind of like he had his rise. He had his rise, pun intended. He had his rise as the leader, and I think it could work. It's just we can't keep comparing it to Caesar. Like we
No,
will.
but I just don't like it's somewhat compelling. I don't think the performance was that strong, to be honest. Even us putting Caesar aside, I think it could have used someone more recognizable, right? It could have used a stronger name and a stronger, like, actual voice. Because I found Noah at the end, like, yeah, it's a good growth of his character, but I think the performance, honestly, could have been better.
I do agree with the voice. Like if you throw in, God, I don't know who I would throw in there.
He's like a teenager, dude. He's like a teenager, you
Yeah,
know?
Owen
That's what
Teague, I
it
think it
felt like.
was. Yeah, I agree with that. I really think the ending, like, it got me. I was like, oh, like this is the first time humans have hope.
The
They've been
song
working
got you.
they've been working four movies to get a connection to anywhere else outside of California, and they finally did. Now we can talk about how realistic, like all this how all this happening is, but again, it's a Talking Apes movie, so I don't think we should go into nitpicks about it. I just think it was interesting. The song was pretty good, and I was like, yeah, they set it up clear, like this is who we're rooting for, but this is kind of intriguing, even though, yeah, you're right, it's a little bit of recycling.
A little bit of recycling, but that's just Planet of the Apes. I think we should get to scores, and maybe if you have some nitpicks about spoiler section, maybe we can do that. Maybe about the ending. I'm going to start off. I'm giving this movie a 68, Ricky Flex.
Wow, okay, I gave it a 76.
Okay, you like this more than
76.
I did. You like this more than I did. I think I literally am tainted by watching the trilogy right before this.
I did too. So I did a rewatch, and I finished War literally probably 2 hours before seeing this one. So like the opening scene for this one is not really a spoiler. I'm telling you what happens, but the funeral for Caesar, I think we already said it actually. It kind of went right into it. I was like, okay, got it. So I didn't wasn't hurt by that. I honestly it hyped me up more. And I said on the summer auction top billing with Scotty Furious, I was like, they're kind of starting to sell me more to become an ape man. And now I'm a Planet of the Apes guy.
I was a Planet of the Apes guy after watching the trilogy. Then I saw this movie and I saw the ending. And I'm like, this is why I'm not a Planet of the Apes guy. It's because of the recycling and how I feel like it's every movie ends in the same type of way. And it's about humans are bad, pretty much after every single movie. That's how you feel.